Good afternoon, everybody. This is WWP Reacts. Wanted to bring you this presentation of Karine Jean-Pierre's testimony before the House Oversight Committee on President Biden's mental decline. So let me share the screen and we'll get right into it. Feel free to put comments in the notes and in the chat. And if you like this stuff, in this content, please subscribe or hit the notifications or send me an email or whatever. So this is going to be interesting with the
on oversight and government reform under the authority granted to it pursuant to House Rule 10. Accordingly, House Rule 10.
I mean, I must say, she looks a little scared, but she looks the way she did when she was up there every day on this up in front the White House press there. So I don't know.
10 grants the committee broad jurisdiction for the committee to conduct investigations of any matter at any time. This interview was requested by Chairman James Comer as part of the committee's investigation into President Biden's alleged mental and physical.
Look at that reaction when she said this is said by Representative Comer and the Oversight Committee. She jutted her jaw like she does all the time when she hears something she doesn't like to hear.
Decline the Biden White House's efforts to hide that from the American people and any unauthorized executive actions. Can the witness please say her name and spell her last name for the record?
Sure. Karine.
Oh, sure. I can say my name. No need to say sure. You ask a proper question. Just say your name.
Jean-Pierre. Last name is spelled Jean-Pierre.
Thank you. On behalf of the committee, I want to thank Ms. Jean-Pierre for appearing here today. The committee appreciates your appearance for the interview. My name is Jake Greenberg, and I am Chief Counsel for Investigations for Chairman Comer. Under the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform's rules, you are allowed to have counsel present to advise you during this interview. Do you have counsel representing you in a personal capacity present with you today?
Yes, I do.
Will counsel please identify themselves for the record?
Raphael Prober from Aiken Gump.
Abigail Coleman from Aiken Gump.
Roll as Aiken Gump.
Thank you. For the record, starting with the majority staff.
She has about $1,500 an hour of lawyers representing her. Who do you think's paying for that? You and me, people. The Democrats, taxpayer money is paying for this. She doesn't deserve to be represented by that many people.
And the additional staff members, please introduce themselves with their names, title, and affiliation.
Peter Spector, professional staff member for the majority.
Ellison Tolan, counsel for the majority.
James Gillespie, staff member for the majority. Grant Skiles, intern for the majority. Amari Collins, intern for the majority.
Sharon is senior professional staff for the majority.
Jessica Collins, House majority.
Bill Harness, staff assistant for the majority.
Look at her freaking out. Peter Spector and all them. Minority staff names.
Thank you all. Mr. Comer.
James Comer, Chairman, House Oversight Committee, Kentucky.
Thank you. Ms. Jean-Pierre, before we begin, I would like to go over the ground rules for this interview. The questioning will proceed in rounds. The majority will ask questions for an hour, and the minority will have an opportunity to ask questions for an hour if they so choose. To the extent members have questions for the witness, they will be propounded during their side's respective rounds. Do you understand?
I understand.
The clock will stop if the witness needs to confer with counsel, when counsel for the witness is speaking, and when members are speaking during the opposing side's round of questions. We will alternate back and forth until there are no more questions. There is a court reporter taking down everything I say and everything you say to make a written record of the interview. For the record to be clear, please wait until the staff questioning you finishes each question before you begin your answer, and the staffer will wait until you finish your response before proceeding to the next question. Further, to ensure the court reporter can properly record this interview, please speak clearly, concisely, and slowly. Also, the court reporter cannot record nonverbal answers such as nodding or shaking your head, so it is important that you answer each question with an audible verbal answer. Do you understand?
Yes.
Exhibits may be entered into the record. Majority exhibits will be identified numerically. Minority exhibits will be identified alphabetically. We want you to answer our questions in the most complete and truthful manner possible, so we will take our time. If you have any questions or do not fully understand the question, please let us know. We will attempt to clarify, add context to, or rephrase our questions. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
If we ask about specific conversations or events in the past and you are unable to recall the exact words or details, you should testify to the substance of those conversations or events to the best of your recollection. If you recall only a part of a conversation or event, you should give us your best recollection of those events or parts of conversations that you do recall. Do you understand?
Yes.
You are required by law to answer questions from Congress truthfully. This also applies to questions posed by congressional staff in this interview. Do you understand?
I'm just fat.
If at any time you knowingly make false statements, you should be subject to criminal prosecution. Do you understand?
Yes.
This includes both knowingly providing false testimony, but also stating that you do not recall or remember something when in fact you do. Do you understand? Furthermore, you cannot tell half-truths or exclude information necessary to make statements accurate. You are required to provide all information that would make your response truthful. A deliberate failure to disclose information can constitute a false statement. Do you understand?
Yes.
Is there any reason you are unable to provide truthful testimony in today's interview?
No.
Please note that if you wish to assert a privilege over any statement today, that assertion must comply with the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Pursuant to that, Committee Rule 16C1 states for the chair to consider assertions of privilege over testimony or statements, witnesses, or entities must clearly state the specific privilege being asserted and the reason for the assertion on or before the scheduled date of testimony or appearance. I would enter as Exhibit 1 a letter transmitted to your counsel dated August 21st, 2025 from Mr. Gary Lukowski, Deputy Counsel to the President. This letter informs you that President Trump has determined not to assert executive privilege over your assessment of former President Biden's fitness for the office of the President and your knowledge of who exercised executive powers during his administration. The letter also states that President Trump will not assert immunity to preclude you from testifying before the House Oversight Committee. Ordinarily, we take a 5-minute break at the end of each hour of questioning, but if you need a longer break or a break before that, please let us know and we will be happy to accommodate. However, to the extent there is a pending question, we would ask that you finish answering the question before we take the break. Do you understand?
Yes.
Do you have any questions before we begin? It's my understanding your counsel wishes to raise a few points before we begin.
Yes, just a couple process points I wanted to run through, and thank you for the opportunity. As counsel for former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, I would just like to note that she's here voluntarily and appreciates the opportunity to answer your questions on this topic.
That's what I'm going to be doing today.
We would request the opportunity to review the transcript for errata or any typographical errors before any public release. And if there is going to be a public release of the transcript or video of the interview, we would ask that it be released in full. So it is accurate and the context is provided. You had referenced the August 21st authorization letter from the White House counsel's office. Appreciate you mentioning that. I wanted to also note that while she is authorized to address the topics you noted and privilege is not being asserted, she has been instructed that she's not authorized to reveal information which is prohibited by law or court order, including classified information, and she will not. And I don't anticipate there's anything that would be at issue in any event. She will be tested.
Let's see.
Topic and relevant for the discussion of President Biden's mental acuity. I just want to make sure we're staying focused.
Yes, I think the decision for President Biden to step out of the race is relevant to that question, and therefore Vice President Harris's
Realm that would be independent.
and as part of the Democrat Party, you didn't feel like you were able to have a voice that was your own.
I think that I spent 20 years working for either a principal, if you will, in those 20 years. And so obviously I was working for someone. And I think now that I'm no longer in a public servant role, I feel that shows just me not being in a public servant role, that I'm an independent voice. And that's how I see myself moving forward.
You said in a statement to CNN, I think around the same time that your book came out, that, quote, "We need to be clear-eyed and questioning rather than blindly loyal and obedient as we may have been in the past." What did you mean by that?
Very interesting.
I think that's kind of the definition of independent, if you will, right? It means that you're standing for your own voice. And that's, I mean, I think the title of the book kind of speaks for itself in that
I
statement.
think she's funny.
So to whom did you believe you were blindly loyal and obedient in the past?
I don't think it's to whom. I think it's more of stepping away from a two-party system and just standing and having my own voice.
You just always work.
Former Vice President Harris has a book that's coming out soon as well, it sounds like. And there's been some recent reporting on what that book contains. There was an article released, I believe, yesterday with a source from the Biden administration that said, quote, "Vice President Harris was simply not good at the job. quote, she had basically zero substantive role in any of the administration's key work streams and would instead would just dive bomb in for stilted photo ops that exposed how out of depth she was. Do you
Look at her body language. Her body language, just like she's furious about these questions.
agree with that?
Can I just ask if I can interject quickly? Is this sort of on topic and relevant for the discussion of President Biden's mental acuity? I just want to make sure we're staying focused.
Relevant.
Yes, I think the decision for President Biden to step out of the race is relevant to that question, and therefore Vice President Harris's role in that is relevant.
Can you repeat the question?
How can you repeat the question?
Vice President Harris was simply not good at the job. Quote, she had basically zero substantive role in any of the administration's key work streams and instead would just dive bomb in for stilted photo ops that exposed how out of depth she was.
Well, I'm not going to
That's what you said, lady.
speak to a source unknown. What I will say is, as White House press secretary, my role was to lift up the administration. That included the vice president, obviously the president.
That's not your role as a press secretary, is to lift up the administration. Your role is to tell the truth.
And to continue to talk about, to discuss what we were doing on behalf of the American people. That was my focus, and that's what I did every day.
So some of the reporting on what's in Vice President Harris's memoir includes, and this is a quote as well, quote, "It's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that like a mantra, as if we'd all been hypnotized. Was it grace or was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left up to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision." Do you agree with Vice President Harris's characterization there?
I haven't read the book. I didn't even read the article or the excerpt from the book. So I out of context, I can't speak to it.
Do you think that it was reckless to leave the decision up to President Biden?
What I can say is, on that question, I can only speak to my observation and what I believe in my role as White House press secretary. I think for the president, any president, it doesn't matter if it's President Biden or any other president, deciding to run for a re-election or making that decision is a personal decision. And my role was to support the decision that the president made.
Did President Biden allow for input on that decision?
All I can speak to is my role as White House press secretary. My role was not to give my opinion on something that was a personal decision for the president to make.
It's not a personal decision to run. Sure, he can make that decision, but that's why we have primaries. And that's the whole problem with the incumbent president being able to just say, I'm going to run. They should have to go through a primary. Now, of course, they do go through a primary, and it's stilted because they don't let anyone else participate. So the incumbent president de facto gets to run again without having a primary. But the fact that Kamala didn't have a primary is horrendous.
Okay.
So you disagree with Vice President Harris that it was a reckless decision?
What I'm saying is that I did not read her book. I did not read the excerpt. I have.
Just, do you agree? Was it a reckless decision? Kamala Harris said that in her book. He's telling she said it. Do you agree? Yes or no?
I can't speak to something that that I haven't even delved into. What I can speak to is the role that I played, my observation, and I do believe any president, it doesn't matter if it's President Biden or any president, deciding to run for re-election is a personal decision. My role as White House press secretary was to move forward with whatever he decided.
And respectfully, I'm not asking necessarily about from your role as White House press secretary. I'm just asking you, do you think it was reckless for President Biden to seek re-election?
I think it was his personal decision and he made that decision and I supported it.
Thank you.
But you didn't support it. There was this.
And I wouldn't characterize it that way. I would just say it's his personal decision to make and he made that decision. I wouldn't characterize it in the way that the question was framed.
I guess I bring it up because certainly I haven't read your book. It's not out yet, but from how you've portrayed it here, to me, it would seem that you could speak freely about this in retrospect now. You don't see it that way?
Can you say more to your question?
You
I
said,
understand what you're asking.
when I read the quote, we need to be clear-eyed and questioning rather than blindly loyal and obedient as we may have been in the past. Certainly, I understand your role in the Biden administration was to defend the administration's positions, but you've left the party and you say that so that you don't have to be blindly loyal and obedient.
Well, I will say this.
So she left.
You're focusing on one part, one particular quote. There are many factors that led to me leaving the party, and I'll just leave it there.
So what
Did you feel you had to be blindly obedient to President Biden?
Well, I wouldn't characterize it that way, the role that I played. I would not characterize it that way. What I will say is that it was an honor and a privilege.
You were a stooge for Biden, a stooge for the lefties.
To be White House press secretary. It's something that I feel very lucky to have been able to be in that role and to be speaking for the President of the United States and to be speaking for the American people was incredibly important to me. And
You don't speak in that role for the American people. You speak for what that administration was doing. You don't speak for me or us.
the Biden-Harris administration. And my role was, yes, to give information, but to do it in a transparent way. And that's what I did day in and day out.
No, you didn't.
And not to belabor the point, but I do want to try to understand what you mean by blindly obedient. You said it wasn't to necessarily a whom, but it was something else. So what specifically did you feel you were blindly loyal to?
Well, I just want to be really clear here. We're using one line from a press release, and there were many, many factors that led to me becoming independent. And I think I was very clear. I said that I didn't want to be part of a party, any party. It doesn't matter if it was Democratic Party or Republican Party. I wanted to step out of that and, do the work from the outside. And so there were many factors. I know you all are reading one particular line, but there are multiple factors as to why I decided to be an independent.
This doesn't matter. Yes, you say you were blindly.
Your book will also reportedly examine, quote, the 3 weeks that led to Biden's abandoning his bid for a second term and the betrayal by the Democratic Party that led to his decision. Is that something that will be addressed in the book?
Can you read that again?
Sure. Quote, the 3 weeks that led to Biden's abandoning his bid for a second term and the betrayal by the Democratic Party that led to his decision.
And you're asking me?
It's reported that that's something that you will address or examine in your book. Is that true?
Yes. I mean, that's what it said in the transcript, correct?
So just briefly, what do you mean by betrayal?
Look,
Yeah, what do you mean?
I'm not going to go into specifics, into details,
You're
but I think it will be, I'll step back for a second. You could be assured that everything that I'm saying today is accurate and concise. And that's my goal of being here today. And I think I've been very clear about the book, about why I wrote it in sense of wanting to step out of the two-party system after being a public servant for decades. And I'll just leave it there.
Well, And I understand that. I understand the book's not out yet. I understand that's an uncomfortable position. So maybe I can ask it a different way. Do you think that
What a smart.
do you think that the Democratic Party betrayed Joe Biden?
I'm not uncomfortable. I'm just stating that
You're uncomfortable.
the book will speak for itself.
And respectfully, ma'am,
Yeah.
this is an interview before Congress.
Mhm.
If you're refusing to answer the question, I think that's, you can note that for the record, but this is the time to provide detail. We
She
are asking.
certainly did not refuse to answer the question.
Yes, she did.
Saying that you're not going to get into detail,
Refusing to.
this is the time to provide detail.
This is
You use a word
this is
betrayal,
technical.
and we're trying to understand what you meant by that.
Okay, but I also believe that what I wrote is pretty clear. What the press release says is pretty clear, and
So
I think it lays out what the book is going to be and what the book talks about.
I did.
What was the
It's a yes.
betrayal that you were describing?
I mean, you just read the line from the transcript.
Why'd you say that?
We will return to those last 3 weeks, but we can proceed from here.
So cagey.
We'll take a step back and talk about sort of your general career background. I understand you've had a long career, so we can sort of move quickly through some of the earlier ones. But what was your first job was it out of college? Did you work between undergrad and graduate school?
Yes, I did. I
Did.
worked for a non-for-profit out of college.
Okay. Do you recall what that was called?
It was focused on education.
And then after graduate school, was that when you worked for a New York City counselor?
Correct.
And then after working for Mr. Gennaro, you worked for John Edwards' presidential campaign in 2004. Is that right?
I worked for City Council Member Gennaro, and then after that, I worked for City Council Member James Sanders. And then after that, I worked for another organization in DC.
And then John Edwards' presidential campaign?
Yeah.
And after the campaign, where did you go next?
Which campaign?
After the 2004
2004
Edwards campaign for president.
If I remember correctly,
Oh,
no, not to 2004. I did not work for the 2004 John Edwards campaign.
Okay, what year did you work for the John Edwards campaign?
It was 2008.
mate.
And then in 2008, you also worked for Barack Obama's campaign. Is that right?
That's correct.
How did you work for 2 years? Oh,
What was your role on that campaign?
In both campaigns, I was Southern Political Director, Regional Southern Political Director.
Southern Regional Local Director.
And then after the 2008 campaign, you joined the Obama White House. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what was your role?
I was also in the political department, but I had the Northeast.
What was
And you served the whole first term. Is that right?
Not the whole first term, just for 2 years.
And then you
Well, let me
joined.
step back. Before I did the political office, I was a White House liaison.
And then after 2 years, you went where?
Go into, move back to Chicago to do the reelect.
So then you were on the 2012 reelection campaign. Did you work in President Obama's second term in the
No,
White House?
no.
Where were you working during that time?
I think I did some consultant work after the campaign.
And you worked for Martin O'Malley's 2016 presidential campaign. Is that right?
For a brief moment, yes.
And we can skip ahead here. When did you join the Biden 2020 presidential campaign? Do you recall?
I believe it was May of 2020, going into the general.
And then if I
She is breathing hard. She hates this.
understand correctly,
She's a lefty through and through for over 20 years. Far left demagogue.
at some point you were on vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris's side of the campaign. Is that right? Or was it at the transition?
It was the running mate. When she became running mate, I became her chief of staff.
And did you have a role on the transition team?
As an advisor.
And then once President Biden was inaugurated, you were principal deputy press secretary, is that right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then eventually you succeeded Jen Psaki in May of 2022, is that right?
Correct.
And you served the remainder of the Biden administration in that role, is that right?
Correct.
So if we take a step back, when was the first time you met President Biden?
If I'm remembering the year correctly, it was 2009 during the Obama-Biden administration.
During the administration. So you did not meet him on the campaign trail at all in 2008?
Not that I recall.
And what was the frequency of your interaction with Vice President Biden during that time?
I can't remember the frequency, but if he traveled in my region, I saw him often.
Just, I guess, to get some context.
No, I understand. I don't want to lock in on the amount of time, but
Sure.
I saw him often enough.
And would this be in a room full of people, or did you have meaningful, direct conversations with the Vice President as well?
I did. And I traveled with him, yeah.
And did you advise him as well?
As it relates to my job.
So during that time,
Sorry, can you give an example of what you mean by that as it relates to your job?
Yeah,
in this
sure.
position?
Happy to do it. I was the Northeast political director. So in that role, anytime he traveled in the Northeast, I traveled with him when he was doing specific political events.
And what would you advise him on in that?
Because I was the person who kept an eye on what was going on the ground for the administration politically. If he had questions, I was able to answer those questions. That's it. And it was just what was happening on the ground in that state.
and during that time, when you first had met and interacted with Vice President Biden, did you notice that he had a stutter?
She's getting real.
I honestly can't remember specifically if he had a stutter. Obviously, this is something that he talks about
Yes.
very often, and he was always open about his stutter. But I can't remember in 2009 if that came up or if I even noticed it. But I know that he talked about it pretty regularly.
Yeah.
The reason I ask, and I use the word stutter because I believe that's the word that President Biden used, and we talked about this a little bit with Anita Dunn, who recalled not noticing or knowing about his stutter until he made it public at some point, I think around 2020. Is that how you recall it as well?
Look, I don't specifically remember. Obviously, that's her recollection. I can't speak to that, but I don't remember specifically when that came up. But I know that he has talked about it pretty regularly. And look, I don't think anybody who has a stutter that prevents them from doing high level and executing high level issues and problem solving.
You're adding words.
Of course, we're trying to understand sort of a change over time.
Yeah.
And later on, I think the stutter was an excuse at times used later on in the campaign. So I think I'm just trying to get a sense for, what the evolution of that was over time. So you don't recall specifically during that time?
I don't. I just know that on the campaign, I do remember him meeting someone who had a stutter, a young boy who had a stutter, and connecting with that young person. And he would have conversations about what was his trick to try to get through his stutter, which I think was kind of like his humane way of connecting with people. That's what I remember.
Of course. And this is the 2020 campaign?
This is the 2020 campaign that I'm talking about.
So in 2009, and I won't hold you to exactly 2009, but in that range, did you ever hear President Biden stutter?
I honestly don't recall. I don't recall hearing that. And I did interact with him, but I don't recall.
You don't recall him.
How would you describe his communication or his communication skills during that time? 2009-ish.
2009. He was, the Joe Biden that people talk about, very friendly, very open, wanting to know everybody, who was everybody in the room. He was not like any elected official that I had worked with. He was incredibly friendly and wanted to know everything about you. That's the Vice President Joe Biden that I met.
And do you recall him having any trouble recalling your name?
Not that I recall back in 2009. Not that I recall.
So you don't remember an instance where he forgot your name or maybe somebody else's name around you?
No, I mean, I was new to his. I was technically on Obama's team, but I traveled with him from time to time. But I don't remember him not knowing who I was.
So when he saw you, he would say, "Hi, Karine," or "Hi, Ms. Jean-Pierre."
He would be very friendly when he saw me, and he knew what my role was, and we would just move forward in that fashion.
And you mentioned that you worked on President Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. During that campaign, did you have a similar?
So I was in DC in 2012 and had to interact with the Obama White House during Hurricane Sandy when I was with the Army Corps of Engineers. And well, I never saw her, but I saw Biden and he was out of it. I mean, he couldn't understand what we were doing in New York to try to relieve that city of the damages that were caused by Hurricane Sandy. And it always bewildered me. I didn't talk directly to him, but I was, talking to his staff and they just didn't seem to get it, in my opinion.
Frequency of interaction with
No,
Vice President Biden?
no, because my role was different. So no.
So you didn't see him very
No,
often?
I didn't interact with him.
Not at all?
No, because we were in Chicago. They were in the White House. He and the president were pretty busy. And so we didn't see either of them very frequently.
Did you have any role in debate preparation for either President Obama or Vice President Biden?
No.
No.
In 2024, no.
So I guess to be clear, during the Obama administration, did you work on debate prep for
No.
anybody?
I did not.
And you did not in the 2024, did you do that in the 2020
Yes, yes, I was.
for President Biden?
Yes. Then Vice President Biden and also then Senator Kamala Harris.
Okay, thank you. We'll get more into that later. But,
No.
Yes.
so you mentioned you joined the Biden 2020 campaign around May, is that right?
Yeah, May 2020.
Did somebody approach you for this role?
It was a conversation that I had with then Vice President Biden in early of 2019. Don't remember the exact day when he had asked me to join the campaign before he announced, and I was not able to do that. I had a young child at the time and could not commit being on the road for 2 years. And so one of the things that we discussed was in the general election for me to come on board in the general election if that were to happen.
So it was a conversation directly with then Vice President.
Yeah. And then it was revisited in May of 2020.
Was that a phone call?
No, it was a meeting
Where was the meeting?
in Virginia.
In Virginia.
Where specific? Was that a home or a restaurant?
If I'm remembering correctly, it was a home that the Bidens rented in Virginia in 2019 at the time.
Can you add a little color to what that meeting was?
It was pretty straightforward. It was, come join my campaign, need you on my campaign. It was very straightforward. There was nothing much more than that, being just straightforward and asking me and direct.
Did you talk about his time served, Joe Biden's time as vice president? Did he
No.
make any reference to that?
No, it wasn't a long conversation. It was pretty direct.
Sure.
And once you joined the Biden 2020 campaign, did you travel with former Vice President Biden?
It was COVID, so there wasn't a lot of traveling. I mean, this was 2020 campaign was unprecedented, as I'm sure you all could imagine.
Yeah, how
And
did he get
so
elected?
it was, there wasn't a lot of
Yeah,
travel because of
Cheated.
COVID.
That's right.
So what did your interactions with candidate Biden look like?
It was mostly virtual, to be quite honest, because of COVID.
And were these meetings, with lots of participants on the call, or did you interact directly with?
It would depend,
So occasionally you would have calls directly with candidate Joe Biden.
like one-on-one.
How would you characterize it?
I would say that anytime there involved information that he needed, or to prepare for a meeting, there would be a virtual conference call.
So-
I couldn't tell you how many people were on the call.
Sure. So, but you interacted with him, whether it be virtually or on the phone or maybe occasionally in person, frequently?
Well, it was COVID, so it was mostly virtual or on the phone. And I don't know, maybe I saw him a handful of times because of the moment that we were in.
So those virtual and phone calls, were they frequent?
She can't keep in.
We're talking about 2020. I mean, it was a campaign, so they were often.
Yeah, so
I can't give you the exact frequency.
so it's frequent.
And can you estimate how many times you actually interacted with then candidate Biden in person?
Probably, this is just a guess, I would say maybe less than 5 times. I mean, it was COVID, so it was really hard to engage in person.
And it's my understanding that President Biden was mostly based out of Wilmington at that time. Is that correct?
I know he was in Delaware,
Sure.
yeah, most of the time.
And just, I'm not asking for an address, but just generally, where were you based at that time?
I was based in Maryland.
Who, to your understanding, was actually with then candidate Biden up in Delaware?
I don't know. I mean, it was a small, and again, it was COVID. It was a very, very small team of people that were around because of just trying to be careful and mindful of the protocols. And it was,
Yeah.
as we all know, a scary time.
All the fake stuff that put in place to scare Americans.
And then I believe you said in August of 2020, roughly, you became
Would do
then candidate
stupid.
Kamala Harris's chief of staff. Is that right?
Yeah, running mate.
And could you remind us what your title was?
I
Or
think
what your role was exactly?
basically to help manage her team and to get her ready for whatever it is that she needed, whether it was a debate or a speech or making sure that she had what she needed on the road while she was traveling.
And her
But it was managing the team essentially.
of
The chief of staff.
vocab words.
So you did help prepare Kamala Harris for her vice presidential debates?
I think she only had one, if I remember it correctly.
You are.
Lord,
Did you request to work for
what's he doing?
Kamala Harris over Joe Biden?
So just to give you a little bit of the lay of the land, while I was her chief of staff, I was still a senior advisor for Joe Biden. And there was once or twice where I would travel. I think I traveled with him once. I may have helped. I still was doing stuff for him, but limited capacity because I was focused on being her chief of staff. And it wasn't a choice. I didn't pick one or the other. He asked me to be the chief of staff for the running mate. I didn't know who the running mate was going to be at the time. And I when your boss asks you to do something, you say, and in that really important role, like a job like that, I said yes.
A really important role.
How
Important.
I guess I didn't realize that you had been asked to serve with the running mate before the running mate was actually chosen.
Mhm.
How long was that kind of roughly? What are we
I
talking
mean,
here?
days. It was
Okay.
days. That's a good question. I can't remember exactly when, but it was in a very small, short timeline.
What was your relationship with then Senator Harris like at the time?
We knew of each other, but we weren't we were friendly, but we weren't friends, and we knew of each other and respected each other.
When Senator Harris was picked as the running mate, did you think that was a good idea?
again, this is a personal decision that only
Did you think
a,
it's a good idea?
you know,
Why can't you?
a candidate can make. So I just respected his decision and moved forward with it.
Did you think she was a suitable candidate to be vice president if so elected?
I mean, look, she was in the 2020 presidential primary. And so I thought that, I've always thought that she was impressive. I always thought that she was incredibly talented. But again,
Please.
I didn't have an opinion. It was for the president to make, or then Vice President Biden to make.
Did you find her to be honest?
I mean, I worked with her for a very short period of time. I've always found her to be direct and a hard worker. That's what I can speak to.
But not honest?
I think she was direct. I mean, honest, direct, hard worker, all of the things. I think that she was just
You won't commit.
really focused on the job at hand. That's what I can speak to.
Thank you.
And understanding this is still COVID, how often did you interact with then vice presidential candidate Harris?
I interacted with her. She lived in DC, so it was easier to interact with her. So I saw her often enough.
So
Often enough.
every week?
Yeah, every week.
And now thinking into the Biden administration, of course, COVID was still around. Did your interaction with then President Biden increase from the campaign?
Yeah, say that one more time.
Once President Biden was inaugurated, of course, COVID was still around.
Oh, inauguration. Yeah.
Once you were in the White House, did your interactions with President Biden increase from what it had been on the campaign trail?
So I was the principal deputy press secretary. So Jen Psaki was the press secretary. So she interacted with him a lot more than I did. But we were all, there was, well, I didn't say all of us, but there was a group of us that were at the White House. And so we were there every day.
Did you?
So you would see him in person every week?
I would say a couple times a week, once a week. But again, I was the deputy. I wasn't the press secretary. So I didn't see him as regularly.
So just generally, what were your responsibilities and duties as the deputy?
To step in for Jen Psaki at the podium when she couldn't, to travel with the president, and to prep him when needed, and also to deal and talk to and manage with the press.
I'm going to tell us this.
And then when you became press secretary, is that when your interaction with President Biden increased?
Well, White House press secretary, most White House press secretary deal with the president regularly, and so did I.
So every day when he was in the White House, or?
I would say on average once a day.
And as press secretary, did Andrew Bates report to you?
He reported to me, the communications director, and also Anita Dunn.
Mm-hmm.
And
well,
how much direction did you give these people that reported to you? Were you their direct supervisors, or?
Yeah.
So you interacted with them on a daily basis as well?
With my team in the White House press, yes.
Is it usual for somebody from your team to also answer to Ms. Dunn?
It was because of his portfolio. He had a political portfolio.
Were there other members of your team that also answered to Ms. Dunn?
No, because he had a political portfolio, so yes.
What about Ian Sams?
He was not a part of my team.
Oh,
Ron Klain and others have testified that there was sort of the timing, it may not be exact, but roughly 8 a.m. senior staff meeting every day, followed by another slightly less senior staff meeting around 8:40 or so. Did you attend either or both of these every day?
I did. As press secretary, yes.
So not while you were deputy, but once you became press secretary.
Yes.
While you were deputy, did you attend the second meeting, the slightly less senior meeting?
I don't believe I did.
So understanding this is while you're press secretary, what were the usual topics of these senior staff meetings?
It was usually
Seniors.
what was going on that day,
Super
the
senior.
week ahead if needed, depending on the day.
You got more senior.
Any legislative announcement, policy announcement that we were doing. It was pretty straightforward.
Were there discussions of executive decisions being made by the president?
Can you say more?
Was there discussion of the process of making an executive decision, such as issuing an executive order or a pardon or clemency decisions?
I think there were many meetings like that, but there were many meetings that I was not part of. Obviously, as White House Press Secretary, I'm not in every meeting. But usually those morning meetings were more, I would say, like a check-in meeting on the day and how to move forward.
And did these meetings ever include discussions of President Biden's health?
I think as far as I was involved, it was more of what was being asked by the press and what was the press inquiry, and it was in that form.
So if the press had questions about President Biden's health, then it would have come up at that meeting?
Not necessarily, but that would be, if you're asking me how it would come up because of the press perspective.
Do you recall that happening?
If it did, very infrequently.
Do you recall a specific instance?
No, because it didn't take over in those meetings at all.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Meaning like the health, what press was asking about as it related to his health didn't overtake those meetings. You have to remember, one of the questions that I got frequently from press was health questions and age questions. So that was something that we had to deal with for a good portion of his first term or his term.
The only term.
So any discussions of President Biden's health at these morning meetings, they were only in the context of press inquiries, never anything different than that?
I do not recall having a specific meeting on his health, no.
Maybe, to be clear, maybe not a meeting that's all about his health, but did his health come up at these meetings in any context?
Not that I recall.
You sure as hell talked about it a lot on the campaign or on the stump every day.
So when you were facing media inquiries regarding the president's health, when would you raise those in a normal situation?
So I think in these meetings, I'm the White House press secretary. So if I get asked, hey, was the press talking about? What's going to be the focus in your press briefing? That's how it would come up. So I would say, this is what the press is covering. This is the topics that they're into. That's how it would come up.
And to get answers to those questions from the press, would you raise them exclusively in that meeting,
No.
or would it be in other settings as well?
It was just as I said, this was a check-in. These meetings were primarily check-in. So it was my role is to engage with the press. And so that's how it would come up.
And if one of those questions came up and it didn't feel natural, circumstances arise in which you're not bringing it up in that meeting, who would you go to get answers to that question?
Yeah.
And just want to step back for a second to be very clear. If there was
A question is health.
if there was a shooting, for example, and people were having inquiries, press was having inquiries, did he speak to the mayor? Did he speak to the governor? It was just in that same vein. I would be asked, okay, what's going on what's the incoming that you're getting? What's going on in the press? I would bring that up. So that's what I'm talking about, like what press had on their mind. As it relates to my press briefings and how I would take on any incoming questions, the Q&A, if you will, the talking points that came out would come from the comms team, senior advisors, and my press team.
So I don't think that was helpful. I don't think it entirely answers my question.
Didn't even answer the question.
If you had a question that you were trying to get an answer for about the president's health, who would you go to?
The press team, the comms team, senior advisors, depending on the question.
Would you go to Mike Donilon, for instance?
So just to lay out a little bit. So
layout? What's that?
The press team, people have a portfolio, comms team, people have a portfolio. And so they would be the ones that would, work with the policy teams or the senior advisor on any topics that were coming up in the briefing room. And then they would come to me. And then we would talk through whatever topics that were going to be coming up in the press briefing room. And that's how it worked.
So who had the portfolio for inquiries regarding President Biden's health?
That was primarily coming from the communications team.
And who on the communications team?
I mean, we've had different people coming, kind of being part of the communications team. So it was an array of people. It was also Anita Dunn, who was part of the senior advisors. So I don't want to pinpoint anybody because there was, depending on the timing, depending on what time of,
So many questions.
what time during
Because you
the first term or his term.
Would it ever occurred to you to go to Ms. Thomasini with a question regarding the president's health?
I did not.
How about Mr. Bernal?
About the president's health?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bernal? No.
How about Ashley Williams?
No, I don't recall doing that.
How about the first lady? Same question.
No.
Did you interact frequently with the first lady?
Not frequently, but I saw her from time to time.
And did you ever have a conversation about President Biden's health or fitness?
No.
No, never. Liar. Liar.
How would Ms. Dunn tell you to handle inquiries regarding the president's health or fitness?
Basically meaning, can you be more specific?
If there were any talking points that stick out to you about what the message should be regarding the president's health or fitness?
Yeah, what was your method?
I mean, I was pretty much on the record about the president's health and from my observation. Look, and what I said at the podium is certainly what I believed and what I saw myself, my personal observation as well, which is that he was, capable of doing the job. This is a president that had the experience to do the job, cared about the American people, and did it every day, day in and day out, and was able to have some pretty successful legislation and policies to help move this country forward. And that's how we just kept it high level. We kept it on what the president has been able to do.
Confuse the American people.
Do you think that strategy, delivering that message, was effective, or do you think that there should have been other efforts taken by you or other people in the White House to push back on this story about the president's health or fitness?
Here's what I say. I would say that
Here's what I say. Yay.
this is a president where the American people, reporters, whoever was following him got to see him on a regular basis. This is someone who talked to reporters, in an informal way, taking shouted questions, inquiries from them over 670 times. So he did that pretty regularly. People got to see him multiple times a week. And that reaches a level of, hey, you guys get to see and speak to him, and he takes your question and he's out there.
Then why did this question keep coming up?
Exactly.
That's something for, I think, reporters to speak to. It was a question that came up. We tried to do our best to answer it. The president was out there. People got to see him. People got to hear directly from him pretty regularly. I can't speak to that. I'm not going to speak to a hypothetical that I can't even answer.
Did the frequency of this question increase as from January 20th, 2021 to the end of Joe Biden's term?
I think it was something that was a part of being in the administration. It came up. I can't speak to the frequency, but it was one of the topics that came up often.
All the time.
It didn't increase after his debate with President Trump.
I mean, you all watch my press briefings, right? So that was a topic certainly after the debate. But again, that my observation has always been when it comes to this President Biden, that he was more than competent of doing the job each and every day,
Okay.
day in and day out. And I got to see that on a regular basis. That was my observation.
And I hear what you're saying. I'm less interested in what you have to say about whether you believe the president was capable of doing the job. My question is, did you ever see a change in the president's ability to do the job?
We started off part of your questioning about when I first met him in 2009. I think that he's aged, I've aged. Presidents age in these jobs. It is very common. Obviously, he got older. I spoke to that at the podium. He spoke to that about how he's aged. But when it comes to competency, when it comes to being able to do the job, he was more than capable of doing that. Did he age? We all do. Yes, he did.
And I understand that we all age. We're aging just sitting in this room right now, but
Every second.
every second. But
Feels like it.
My question is, did you see a change
In his
From-
behavior.
in his competency? You brought the word competency from 2021 to 2025.
I did not see a change in his competency
Are
from
you kidding?
2021 to the end of his administration, if that's what you're asking me,
So
if I have that correct.
yes, ma'am. So let's expand the scope even further. You've known Joe Biden, interacted with Joe Biden since on a semi-regular basis since 2009. Is it your testimony here today that Joe Biden's competency is the same from 2009 to today?
What I will say is, when I served with him in the 4 years of this administration, he was more than competent to do the job. This is someone who woke up every morning focused on the American people and delivering for the American people. And that's what I saw.
Same thing
I saw
he said all the
someone
time.
who cared and
Okay,
did that
Cared.
in
Did he have the
a very focused way.
job?
And
Did he even do the
and,
job, or did you
you
guys?
know, that's
things.
why I was honored and privileged to have worked in this administration.
And I understand that you believe that he was competent the entirety of his term. I'm asking you, did you see a change in from 2009 to 2025 in Joe Biden's competency?
No, I did not.
No.
This is someone who, if you're in a room with him, when I was in a room with him during the administration, when I came in to talk to him about whatever issue that he wanted to know about, this is someone who had a conversation with me back and forth, who was very engaged, who was very aware of what was happening in the press, sometimes more aware than I was. And we would have that discussion. And that was my exchange. And that was what I experienced in the 4 years that I worked for this president.
Do you believe that Joe Biden became a less adept debater from the time that you began knowing him to 2025?
So I will just use his own words. He said himself he wasn't as good debater as he used to be, or he wasn't speaking as well as he used to. That's something that he said. He actually spoke to.
Did you ever have conversations with President Biden about why he wasn't as good of a speaker as he used to be?
I never had a direct conversation with the president about that.
Did you have a conversation with somebody else about that?
I never had a conversation with anybody.
Oh, please.
You mentioned that you didn't
That's-
recall at least noticing that Joe Biden had a stutter when you first met him. But did you notice it at some point during your time in the Biden administration?
I can't remember specific times, but obviously this is something that he was free-willing and talked about extensively. And I can't pinpoint a moment where I experienced that or could remember. But this is somebody who talked about it, connected with other folks who had stutters. And, again, if you have a stutter, it doesn't mean that you can't perform at a high level.
Yes. Go ahead.
Certainly. And the reason I ask at all is simply because
Associated
that
with that age.
the fact that he had a stutter was brought up as perhaps a reason for some of his
Bad-
lack of performance in the debate, for example, and other moments. Do you agree with that? Do you think that played a role?
Look, I can't hypothesize or opine what it's like to have a stutter, and what that's not something that I can speak to. I know what you're speaking of. What I know is that he had to work very hard to deal with his stutter, even today, from the time he was young, even today, something that he talked about extensively. Again, just because you have a stutter doesn't mean you can't operate at a high level and be very functioning, and that does not affect your competency.
Certainly, and I agree with you. I only mean that it seemed to be cited as proof that he was not in cognitive decline in any way, that any verbal stumble was simply the result of the stutter.
Again, what I can speak to is my observation, and this is somebody that was more than competent to do his job. I don't think a stutter, if he had it or not, if you have a stutter, doesn't mean that you can't perform at a high level. But my experience, my observation, again, and I said this at the podium, and I will continue to say it today in front of all of you, which is this is someone who was very active and engaging with me when I had conversations with him.
Do you think that you mentioned that the press was very concerned or brought up frequently President Biden's health or these related issues of his cognitive abilities?